Is Zelensky facing defeat? There are ample signs, and that is why I asked this question tonight. Is the Ukrainian president facing defeat? Let me tell you what's happening on the ground. One, Russian forces are advancing on several fronts. The region of Kharkiv is the latest flashpoint. Russia began its incursion into Kharkiv on Friday, and between then and now, Russia claims to have captured at least 12 settlements. That's 12 in 6 days. Russia, in fact, is carrying out what's being called one of the most significant ground attacks since the beginning of the war. Fighting is raging in a town called Vovchansk. This is where it is on the map, some 5 kilometers from the Russian border. Ukraine says Russian infantry groups have already entered the town of Vovchansk. Moscow claims its troops have also recently taken control of 2 more villages in Kharkiv. Russian troops have also taken at least 1 settlement in Southern Zaporizhzhia. It's called Robotine. It happens to be one of the settlements that Kiev retook in its counter-offensive last year. So what's next? Russia's state news agency RIA says that Russian forces are preparing to take a village called LYPTSI. That's about 30 kilometers north of Kharkiv. One Russian official said Russian troops are already on the outskirts of LYPTSI. On top of that, Russian troops are also bombing towns and villages. There have been Russian airstrikes on Ukraine's Mykolaiv and Kherson. In fact, 17 people have been injured. There has been an air attack on the Dnipro where 2 people have lost their lives. Like I said, Russian troops are advancing on multiple fronts.
Our troops are constantly, every day, improving their positions in all directions. I repeat, they're carrying out all the tasks set by the Ministry of Defense and the General Staff.
Выполняют все задачи, поставленные Министерством обороны.
Now, the bad news for Ukraine is Russia is not done. Experts say Russians will up the ante over the next 3 months. And guess what? They are not wrong. Have a look at what the Russian President Vladimir Putin is saying. In that public meeting with Russia's new defense minister, Andrei Belosov, Putin said that victory could be hasted by the use of more powerful and advanced weapons. Now, what does that mean for Zelensky, who is already struggling to arm his troops? Is Zelensky facing defeat? And here's sign number 2, by the way. Ukrainian troops have been forced to withdraw from several villages in Kharkiv. They have pulled back after coming under heavy fire. A spokesperson for the Ukrainian military said the troops had to be pulled back from the settlements of Lukyansky and Vovchansk in order to, quote-unquote, preserve the lives of our servicemen and avoid losses. Ukraine has also had to evacuate some 8,000 people from Kharkiv last week. You see, there is no guarantee that Russia will not open more fronts. Does Ukraine have what it takes to defend itself is the question. There is shortage of troops and Ukraine has burned through its cache of weapons. Troops' morale is down. The counterattacks are failing. Ukraine has not been able to inflict much damage. Russia claims its military shot down 10 US-supplied long-range missiles known as ATACMS over Crimea. ATACMS is short for Army Tactical Missile Systems. Earlier this week, the US had said that American ATACMS were reaching Ukraine. This week, Moscow also said that 5 Ukrainian attack drones were destroyed over the Kursk and Bryansk regions in Russia. How do you read this, if not as Ukraine's failure to defend its settlement and inflict damage on Russia? Which brings us back to the question, is Zelensky facing defeat? Here's sign number 3. The writing is on the wall. Even Zelensky knows it. He has cancelled all foreign trips. Zelensky's press secretary, Sergei Nikiforov, said that the president had, quote, instructed that all international events scheduled for the coming days be postponed and new dates coordinated. The president says, quoting further, all attention now is focused on the current defense operations. Number 4. While Zelensky is being forced to stay home, Putin is on his second visit to China in just over 6 months. And from China, Putin is once again sending signs that he has never shied away from negotiations, that he is ready to talk. In a joint press conference, Xi Jinping said both the sides agreed that a political settlement to the Ukraine crisis was the quote-unquote right direction. Listen to this.
We both agreed that a political settlement of the Ukrainian crisis is the right direction.
And what's more, Putin said he was grateful to China for trying to solve the crisis. Let's play out that bite as well.
I will, of course, inform Mr. President of China on the situation around the Ukrainian crisis. We are grateful to the Chinese friends and colleagues for the initiatives they put forward to solve this problem.
Now remember, China has proposed a 12-point peace plan for Ukraine, and the plan does not talk, and I repeat, does not talk about troop withdrawal. Will Zelensky be forced to settle for status quo in order to avoid an all-out defeat? Does he have any other option in the face of Russia's fresh offensive? A split has been festering in Israel's war cabinet, and now it has burst out into the open. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has challenged the Prime Minister Netanyahu to come up with a post-war plan for Gaza. Listen to this.
Since October, I have been raising this issue consistently in the cabinet and have received no response. The end of the military campaign must come together with political action. The day after Hamas will only be achieved with Palestinian entities taking control of Gaza, accomplished by international actors, establishing a governing alternative to Hamas rule. This, above all, is in interest of the state of Israel.
You heard that. A frustrated Gallant is complaining that he has been consistently raising this issue, but there has been no resolution. Gallant also made it clear that he will not permit any solution where Israeli military is deployed in Gaza. Listen to this now.
Unfortunately, this issue was not raised for debate, and worse, an alternative was not raised in its replacement. Indecision is in essence a decision. This leads to a dangerous course, which promotes the idea of Israeli military and civilian governance in Gaza. This is a negative and dangerous option for the state of Israel, strategically, militarily, and from a security standpoint.
Indecision is a decision. Those are Gallant's words. And his comments were immediately backed by his fellow minister Benny Gantz. Gantz said that Gallant had only spoken the truth, and with that, the Israeli leadership has plunged into a highly public row. How is Bibi taking this, you ask? Not well. He is furious. He is pushing back. Listen to what he said.
הקטסטרופה ההומניטרית שדיברו עליה לא התממשה, היא גם לא תתממש.
Eliminating Hamas is an essential step in order to ensure that on the day after, there will be no element in Gaza that can threaten us. Until it is clear that Hamas does not control Gaza militarily, nobody will be prepared to take upon himself the civil management of Gaza out of fear for their lives. Therefore, all the talk about the day after, while Hamas remains intact, will remain mere words, devoid of content. Contrary to what is being claimed, for months we have been engaged in various efforts to resolve this complex problem. Some of the efforts are covert, and it is good that this is so. This is one of the objectives of the war that we have defined, and we are determined to achieve it as well.
You see, it's a war of words. Gallant says his concerns have not been addressed, but Netanyahu has countered him, claiming that he has been trying to find a solution for months. If that's the case, why hasn't he come up with a plan yet? For days, the Biden administration has been pressuring Israel to plan for post-war Gaza. But Netanyahu has delivered his response. Not so fast. You just heard it for yourself. He has argued that it would be just chatter while Hamas remains intact. Netanyahu does not seem to be listening to Biden's officials. What would this lead to? While US support for Israel seems ironclad, will it end up abandoning Netanyahu? Because the other ministers seem to be more than happy to do America's bidding. The leaders are split on the fate of this war, and the split is getting wider day after day, by the way. Some want to prioritize the return of hostages. Others, like Netanyahu, want to press on with total annihilation of Hamas. They are not ready to accept the ceasefire deal brokered by Qatar and Egypt. Gallant's comments have only added fuel to the row. The security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has in fact called for Gallant to be removed. He said that Gallant failed on October 7 and continues to fail even now. And such a defense minister must be replaced in order to achieve the war goals. But can Netanyahu really afford to do that? You see, the last time he fired Gallant, it did not go down well with Israelis. There were protests, there was agitation to the extent that Netanyahu had to go back on his decision. So what gives? The government seems too occupied with its own conflicts. How will it handle what's happening outside? Hamas has its own set of demands. It says a post-war plan that does not include the group will be opposed. It wants to be involved in deciding post-war rule in Gaza along with other Palestinian factions. But all of that is a discussion for later. The Israeli establishment needs to settle its internal issues first. Yesterday, we told you how a Pakistani-American businessman was praising India and the Indian Prime Minister. Well, it appears to have become a trend now. The speech of a Pakistani lawmaker has now gone viral. This MP's name is Saeed Mustafa Kamal. He is the leader of a political party in Pakistan, the MQMP, short for Muttahida Qawmi Movement Pakistan. So this leader was speaking at Pakistan's parliament earlier this week, and during his speech, Kamal drew a contrast between India's progress and Pakistan's poor situation. He said, while India has reached the moon, in Karachi, people, in fact children, are dying by falling in a drain. The lawmaker said, while India's education system is booming, in Pakistan, children do not have access to education. Let me read out for you parts of Mustafa Kamal's remarks. The Pakistani lawmaker said, quote unquote, whenever we have talked to Asif Ali Zardari Sahab, we have found him positive, receptive and interested in solving the problems. I want to inform him that the world is going to the moon, while in Karachi, a child is dying after falling into an open gutter. On the same screen, on one hand, while there was news about India landing on the moon, on the other, there was news about a child dying after falling in an open gutter in Karachi. This is the news every third day. 30 years ago, our neighboring India taught its children what is now in demand around the world. Today, Indians are CEOs of the top 25 companies. Quick question here. Who is to be blamed? The contrast that this Pakistani leader is drawing is on point, but my point is, isn't it up to the leaders like him, especially those in power, to change the despicable state of Pakistan?